I'm 12 years old and I'm in the back of a 1985 Ford Taurus wagon going 80 miles per hour. And with me are two good friends and former teammates, Dwayne and Mike. And Dwayne was probably 2 years younger than I was, so around 10. And Mike, I don't remember much about, except his last name was Fry. And as a 12-year-old whose main sustenance was eating French fries, I thought that was a pretty great last name. We're on our way home from New Jersey from a clinic where gymnastics coaches are teaching other gymnastics coaches the best ways to teach gymnastics. And we were demonstrators, or more really like props. When the clinicians were doing their talks, we were able to demonstrate the skills they were teaching, the progressions, the drills. And just to give you an idea of my role in this, Dwayne was a prodigy. He was the finished product. He was like the cooking shows on the late night host, and they pulled out of the oven and it's perfect. Me, on the other hand, I was more like the raw ingredients that were not yet together, that the host all messes up in the process. And so he got all the accolades and I did all the grunt work, but it was a great time. We met Bart Connor, 1984 Olympic gold medalist, future husband to Nadia Comaneci, the perfect 10. It was like gymnastics royalty. We were excited, we were exhausted, we were famished, and we're on the way home. Our driver was a 1960-1964 British Olympian, and the whole reason why we were there, Mr. Pancott, owner of John Pancott Gymnastics Center. Mr. Pancott wasn't someone that you would necessarily notice entering the room, though before he left the room, you would know who he was and you would never forget who he was. He had pristine posture. He was in impeccable shape. He was a wonderful dresser. His shirt was always tucked in. His pants always pulled up to the proper hip height, nicely pressed. As he would say, to be a champion, you must look like a champion. He had everlasting energy, and I think that was due to the fact that 24/7 he had a McDonald's coffee with him. I don't know how he always kept that coffee cup full of McDonald's coffee, but he did. He visited there daily, and I think he partook in more than just coffee because he did eventually have a quintuple bypass surgery that he made it through. So we'll see. But everlasting energy, tons of positivity. He was a man of routine, a man of self-discipline, and a man of loyalty. And he was considered a master in his craft, which was why we're at this clinic. And we had something in common, you see, because I'm born in England and he was born in England. So we were like kinsmen. So I looked up to this guy and he was someone I paid attention to. So there we are. Mike, Dwayne, and I in the back seat, Mr. Pancott driving, sometimes on the left side of the road, sometimes on the right side of the road, depending on what country he thought he was in at the moment. And we're about to pull off for our traditional fast food run on the way home. And there's no discussion about where we're going. Mr. Pancott loves McDonald's and he's a devotee of the coffee. We like French fries. We're heading to McDonald's. Though as we pull into this parking lot, the backseat gets a little quiet and confused because we don't see any golden arches. Instead, we see a little girl with red hair. We've pulled into a Wendy's. No one knows what to order at a Wendy's. This was new. So he continues to drive into the drive-through lane and he goes right past the speaker where we're supposed to order, pulls right up to the takeout window, slowly rolls down his window, and the young lady working the register looks confused and slowly slides her window open. And before she can get a word out, he says, "Excuse me, do you happen to know where the nearest McDonald's is?" And she told him. And that was it. That was the moment. You see, because every good road trip has a lesson. Sometimes it's immediate. Sometimes you don't realize it until you get home. And sometimes you don't know the lesson until the teacher has passed on and you have to reflect. And the lesson that day wasn't about my gymnastics. It wasn't about how to drive on the left side of the road and the right side of the road and still survive. It wasn't about how much Mr. Pancott was loyal to McDonald's and loved that coffee. The lesson that day was to ask for what you want. And you might not always get it, but if you don't ask, you'll never have direction. So thank you, Mr. Pancott.